Coming up on today's show, the Game Awards nominees have been announced, and I have Rebekah, Valentine, and Blessing Adeoye Jr. here to talk about Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, which they have been playing. What's good, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the What's Good Games podcast, your source for video game news, commentary, analysis, and funny stuff every Friday. I'm your host, Brittany Brombacher, alongside Rebekah, Valentine, reporter, IGN.
That's me. Hi.
We have had you on the show a lot lately, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And of course, I think this is your first time on the show. Blessing Adeoye Jr., host and producer from Kinda Funny.
Yeah, I believe it is my first time on the show. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, I am so excited. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I need some people on the show this week who have played Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I am clenching with anticipation. We are gonna talk about that. Oh, Bless takes a drink. Bless takes a drink.
Oh, yeah. I heard we can drink on this podcast, and I got very excited.
It was really funny. Before we started recording, Bless was like, oh, we can have whiskey on this show. And I'm like, oh, hello, sir. I don't fuck around. Mm-hmm. And then he comes back with his classy-ass glass.
I just like the smallest pour, right? Because I'm not trying to get too turned on this podcast. And then Britt bumps out the big old bottle.
My stash. I don't even have a glass. I just drink straight from the bottle. That's how I do.
Incredible.
That was absolutely incredible.
Powerful.
So, Bless, how was the new studio? Kinda Funny.
New studio is awesome. It's been great to work in the same space as my coworkers and actually share a space, get to have jokes, get to, have in jokes and actually, be face to face with Snowbike Mike, be face to face with Roger, who weren't there when I was working in the previous studio. That's been awesome. But I think even more so, the content has been so much more fun doing it in person. The podcasting on Discord, as you know, Britt, right, is it's a different beast, right?
Yeah.
There are things you have to take account for in terms of timing and waiting for people to go and possible technical difficulties that can happen to an exponential degree because you're working with your own internet, somebody else's internet, all these different setups. And working in a studio where Barrett is running everything and it is just on me to sit down, look at Greg and just talk about whatever and vamp about whatever. It's been such a great difference.
Oh man, I love it. And just the in-room chemistry, I feel like is just because I've been able to go inside the studio at What's Good maybe a couple times since 2020. And yeah, when you're in person and you get to make that actual eye contact. I'm not just making eye contact with my Logitech Brio right now. I'm not actually looking at your faces, and it makes me really sad. But no, the studio is bomb. And Bless, I don't know if I've told you, I think you are an incredible host. You do such a good job hosting Kinda Funny Games Daily. I love listening. And yeah, you're just absolutely rocking it. And Rebekah, I sang your praises a few weeks back, so
you don't have to do no. Blessing is extremely cool. I just pointed at you on the camera. No, Blessing is extremely cool.
Oh, you guys are cool. I'm trying to figure out which way to point. I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Imagine I'm pointing at Blessing.
We're all just pointing at each other. Before we get into the show, I want to let you know that this month's Patreon producers are Chewy's Godson, Alex Rigopulos, Faris Attieh, Justin Foshee, Punkdefied, Matty Dray, and thank you, Retro Lake, for joining us at patreon.com/whatsgoodgames. And thank you to new podcast reviewer, Damsd. I don't know how to say your name, but as always, thank you for the 5-star review. It does help us in those Apple algorithms. So if you have a few moments and you want to say something nice about us, please do. If you don't have anything nice to say, fuck off. And this week's show is brought to you by Factor 75 and Honey, but we'll tell you more about that later because we have some news to talk about. So the Game Awards 2022 nominees have been announced. And I feel like this news has been out for a while, so we don't have to rehash everything. But surprising no one, God of War Ragnarok is leading the industry with 10 nominations. And the Game of the Year nominees are A Plague Tale Requiem, God of War Ragnarok, Elden Ring, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So before we get into some of the other categories, I'd love to hear from you two. What do you think about the Game of the Year nominees?
Reb,
I'm trying to raise my hand. I'm trying to raise my hand. It's not reading on a camera. Immortality got robbed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Reb, me and you are on the same exact page. Because as
I will join that page too.
On Kinda Funny, right? When we were doing our live reactions and predictions for the nominees, as we were working our way toward Game of the Year, right? Because we were saving that for last. In my head, I was just like, please give Immortality the props it deserves. Please give it its props. And the fact that it got there in best direction, I was like, okay, let's freaking go. I'm all about this. Get to Game of the Year. And I understand the fact that this year I think is fairly competitive, especially when you're talking about indie titles. I I'm not in love with the nominees that
Me
are
neither.
included here.
I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're thinking of too, and I don't want to be mean about it because it is a good game. But okay, I'm just gonna say I don't know why Stray's in here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't
That's where
want
I'm
to
at
be like
too.
that because it's good. It's not a bad game. It's a lovely little game. I had a fun time being a kitty. I don't know. I don't know.
It's yeah, I hear you. And I also want to mention, I forgot to do this at the top. We are all a member of a jury outlet. So we have all submitted we were part of the people who made the nominations, and we're gonna be voting, like, go team
I
Robert.
didn't have anything to do with it.
Oh, well, you're a part of IGN, right?
I know, but I didn't even know that. I have nothing to do with it.
Well,
I don't know.
It was all Per Schneider.
It's all him. He takes all the credit for everything. That pair, no, great guy. But anyway, now that that's out of the way, yeah, I knew for sure. I had a feeling. Obviously, Elden Ring was going to be in there. God of War, Horizon, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to think, what are those other three gonna be? And I didn't realize that A Plague Tale had gotten such positive reception.
That too. That was the thing that threw me off. Is when trying to predict who these nominees were going to be, there are so many permutations of, okay, maybe Sifu makes it in there, maybe Neon White, maybe Cult of the Lamb, maybe Immortality, maybe Tinykin. The list would go on in terms of a bunch of different games that came out this year that I think would be fitting for the category. And when I put out a tweet that was like that was my predictions for what I thought the nominees were going to be, and like I predicted the easy three, right, which I would say is God of War, Elden Ring, and Horizon. But then, getting to that latter three, I want to say I predicted Xenoblade. Kirby, I thought was a shoo-in as well.
Oh, yeah. Kirby really
People
not very
love
present
Kirby.
in these awards. Kirby it's in Family Game, and I think nowhere else, which is surprising.
And I forget the other game I predicted. But yeah, like those two, Xenoblade and Kirby, I thought were for sure going to be here.
See,
and
that's
Immortality.
interesting.
Immortality would have been the third you predicted, right?
I think I was expecting Immortality to get snubbed.
Oh,
I'll dig up the tweet to see what the other prediction was, but
I have to say, I was surprised that Xenoblade got in. I love it, but I feel like that's just a game. I mean, a lot of people love it, I guess. You think of JRPGs, especially. I'm in the middle. I say middle of it right now. I'm 90 hours into this thing, and I still have one chapter to go. I just didn't think that maybe a lot of people would take the time to play it through and nominate it, but they did, which is
I kind of agree.
Yeah, which is great. The other game that got snubbed, not necessarily from Game of the Year, but I have to give a shout out for the indie game, is Nobody Saves the World. I don't know if any of you have played that.
I forgot that came out this year.
Oh, yeah, it came out earlier this year. I think it was late January. That game has one of the best progression systems, and it is such a blast to play in co-op. It got absolutely robbed. So let's just get your predictions. Rebekah, who do you think is going to win Game of the Year?
Elden Ring.
Bless?
So my other sixth game that I was predicting was Vampire Survivors.
Oh,
and I was
yeah,
kind of surprised to
yeah.
not see that slip in there.
Yeah.
But in terms of who I think is going to win the whole thing, I think Elden Ring.
Elden Ring?
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's a recency bias in nominations, but I don't think that carries through to voting.
God, I really want to say God of War Ragnarok, but my gut is also saying Elden Ring.
Yeah.
That was
I also
like
about the recency bias thing. I think there's a recency bias in nominations because not for like Game of the Year categories, because people have been thinking about those all year, but for like all the other categories, because when people get down to like best RPG, they're like, oh wait, what RPGs even came out this year? And the things they played most recently will float to the top over things they played at the beginning of the year that they may not necessarily remember.
And that's why Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins got robbed. A game that should have been nominated. That was an excellent video game. If it came out in the fall, it would have got its props.
Oh, actually, let's talk about that category. Also, Rebekah, I don't know why you have this random square in front of you.
Oh, I was waiting for a break in the conversation to mention it.
I don't know. Oh, wait, now it's gone. I'm not sure what happened, but now it's gone. At least it didn't cover your face. But I also want to talk about best role-playing game, because I think we're all fans of RPGs here. So your nominees are Elden Ring. Is it Live Alive or Live Alive?
Live Alive.
Live Alive. Okay, Pokemon Legends Arceus, Triangle Strategy, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Who takes this one, Bless?
Oh, funny enough, man, it's so weird because I'm like, we're in that weird place of the embargo's not up, but the embargo will be up by the time people are listening to this. Where I wish that in the way time works out, that we could replace Arceus Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, because goddamn, that's an RPG. But in terms of what I think will take it here, I'm gonna say Elden Ring as well. Like I have a soft spot in my heart for Live Alive. Absolutely adore Live Alive, but I think in the way that when we get to action adventure, I think God of War Ragnarok is a shoo-in, because that is like the definition of an action adventure game. I think Elden Ring embodies being an excellent RPG so much, like especially when you're talking about the openness of it, when you're talking about the builds you can create, when you're talking about the scope of it, like I think Elden Ring goes above and beyond in that stuff. And so I would expect Elden Ring to take it.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where I'm kind of like, I'm glad we did not break out every single variety of RPG here, like action RPG, open world art, like all the different flavors of it, to separate out turn-based and otherwise. But I do think that like Live Alive is a very fundamentally different game from Elden Ring or like Legends Arceus. Or Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Right?
And it's weird that they're in the same category when you really think about it, because Live Alive is one of the best games this year, and it's wild that it has to go up against Elden Ring.
Dude, I literally had the same thought, especially, I mean, even Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Elden Ring, just two fundamentally different games, but yet here they are in the same category. It's just feel like you got Big Daddy at the top, Elden Ring just waving his big wiener around, and then you have all these little, like, games beneath it, but... Yeah, I mean, I see Elden Ring winning this one too, but I would love it if something else won. I don't think this is Pokémon's Arceus. I mean, that no. I don't even want to talk about that game. Like, that's a sore spot for yours truly. I don't even want to go there.
We don't have to talk about it.
It's funny because I feel like Horizon Forbidden West, we wouldn't typically say is an RPG in the traditional sense, but it has way more in common with something like Elden Ring as opposed to Live Alive.
Exactly.
Right? Like, it's such a weird category.
It is such a weird category. And since we're all fans of Immortality, the last nominee I want to talk about is Best Narrative. So this is for Outstanding Storytelling and Narrative Development in a Game. And your nominees are A Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and Immortality. And so I didn't really know that there was so much discourse around FromSoft's narrative storytelling. I didn't realize all that. Have you seen all this stuff that's been going down on Twitter about people?
I think somebody had a tweet go viral, and that's kind of the.
Is that what it was?
Because I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I caught like half of it today, and I was like, this looks like it's mainly centered around one tweet, and I don't want to engage with this.
I've seen quite a bit of it, like since they announced it. Yeah, starting like right after Game Awards, where a lot of people were like, Elden Ring's not a narrative, and like even last night, I went to grab drinks with friends who like formerly worked at G4, and a lot of them as well, like some of them as well, were like having that back and forth of like, oh, but Elden Ring doesn't have a story, right? Like Elden Ring's not, and I'm like, I don't know, it's difficult,
Did
right?
we play the same game?
Yeah, like that's my thing is, what are we talking about when we talk about narrative? Are we talking about like just a mainline story? Because I understand the idea of the degrees of, okay, maybe there's not character development, or like maybe your own character isn't going through this journey that you maybe expect. But I think for video games, you have to think in a broader context of video games can be so many things, and there are so many different ways to tell stories in video games. And so if I'm experiencing a story through talking to NPCs and like learning about the world through like seeing the construction of the world, right? Like, oh, this building over here is broken in this way, which says this thing about like what happened in this area. I think that type of storytelling in video games is just as valid as a video game filled with cutscenes and character and dialogue and all that stuff.
But so now, sorry, were you raising your hand?
Oh, no, I was just I was supporting the good word that Bless was saying.
But so now I'm changing my mind like on the spot, because it occurs to me that this is the exact same problem as the genre problem. Like, world building is fundamentally a different thing from narrative, which is also fundamentally a different thing from writing. Like, a game can have Final Fantasy VII, the original, has horrible writing and an amazing narrative. Remake is a whole different story. But like, those are two different things. Elden Ring has really amazing world building, but I would say like its narrative is not like super strong. It has one, but it's not like profound or anything.
So on the Game Awards website, right, the blurb they have under it for best narrative is for outstanding storytelling and narrative development in a game.
I guess what I'm saying is, again, all of these things are just sort of baked into one category because that's what we have. I wish we could give awards for all three. This is three different things.
That would be fascinating. I see what you're saying, though, and you're kind of breaking my brain a little bit, but I get it. It is hard, and it's narrative in video games is so much different than I think narrative we're accustomed to in other forms of media, right? If you get like a movie or a TV show, you get what you're given. But in a video game, it's kind of up to you to sometimes go that extra step and learn what that narrative is and learn what the world building is. And I think a really great example of this is Immortality. And while I loved it and I loved how they did something different, I found at the end of playing Immortality, after I went on the Wikipedia page, because I was like, I feel like I missed some shit. I had already rolled credits and everything. There was so much to that story that I did not discover just because I didn't know there was more to find, if that makes sense. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There's kind of something nice about having that air of mystery to it. Like, you know, you never know what you might find if you keep digging. But the fact that I rolled credits and I was still like wondering what was happening, and it wasn't until I read a Wikipedia page that I learned how the whole story kind of came together. And I was like, oh, I wish I would have discovered that on my own, but here we are.
Yeah. It's kind of also dovetails into sort of the Breath of the Wild question. Like, does Breath of the Wild have what you would consider to be a decent video game's narrative or not? And a lot of people were really sour on its storytelling because it was kind of hidden and quiet and subtle. But a lot of people were like, no, and myself included, were like, no, this is actually like, you know, it's not amazing. Like, I wouldn't give it an award for best narrative, but you know, it's fine. It's good. It's got a decent story. It doesn't need like it doesn't need 50 cutscenes explaining everything to you. It's fine.
That's my thing is I don't think the best narrative category is like, here's the game with the most cutscenes and the most dialogue and the most like, you know, traditional cinematic storytelling. I think there's so many different ways to do video game narrative, and I think that does make it difficult in terms of the categories we have here. I think there's like a little bit of a conundrum that we run into when it comes to the Game Awards categories, because I had conversations this week about best action game versus best action adventure, and I'm like, I guess I understand the difference, but I don't know if everyone does, because why is Sifu in best fighting game? Like, Sifu is purely an action game, right? Or a beat 'em up if you really want to get in the weeds of it.
Fighting game? That's funny.
Sifu is in best fighting game, and that upset me deeply. Like, another one is best content creator, and there's been a lot of discourse back and forth around, like, all right, we got Ludwig, we got Carl Jacobs, but then we also have Nibel, and it's such a difficult thing to put some of these names against each other. I don't think Nibel would call
himself a content creator, if you ask him. Not to speak for him, I don't know what he thinks, but
yeah, and like, you know, I'm very much like, I vie for Nibel in that category, just in the sense that like I view social content as content, right? And like his thing is aggregation, or was aggregation, but even still, I think there's some value there. But I do think that putting Nibel up against Carl Jacobs is such a apples and oranges.
Fundamentally different things, yeah.
Yeah, and I would love to see that spun out into best trending Twitch streamer or trending streamer, and then maybe best journalist or best media personality. I think there's ways that you can expand things out from the genres from the categories that we have to represent the industry a little bit better. Because I think, you know, when was the last time I went to somebody and was talking about a video game genre, and I was like, bro, let me tell you about this action adventure game I just played. I'm like, no, usually I say, oh man, let me tell you about this open world game I just played, or let me tell you about this JRPG. Like, I think there are better ways to represent the way that we actually talk about video games that could be reflected in the categories that we have.
Yeah, I agree. We need to update our words.
We do. It's hard. And I know they added some new categories this year. Best adaptation, I think, is what it was, right? Where you can talk about
That doesn't solve any problems.
It does. I know, but that's it's like, what do you do though? Do you add like best JRPG, best Western RPG? I don't know. Everything's an RPG in this day and age. So it's tricky and it's hard. We've had many conversations over the years while being jury members for the Game Awards. Like, so is this game an action adventure or is it an RPG? And,
the one that's really a problem is best family game. What is that?
Dude. Well, last year, didn't It Takes Two get nominated or even win that category?
Yes,
that is not appropriate for playing with children.
It's a game about a family.
It was such, you know, that won Game of the Year, didn't it also?
It did, and it should have. It was perfect Game of the Year. It did not belong in the best family game category.
I think and there's the best multiplayer category too, right? I think like it's that hard thing. If people say family game, you're right. Like, what does that mean? Is it best family friendly game or is it best party game? Like, what does that mean? Because there are some disturbing ass scenes in It Takes Two. I still think of that poor little elephant that they decided to make IRL merch out of, and I'm scared.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do it. Anyway, yeah. So it's interesting to watch the Game Awards evolve. And are you all going to be at the Game Awards next month?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Yay.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome. We'll have some drinks at the JW Marriott, and it will be.
Oh, yeah. We dressing up nice?
Oh,
I'm dressing up real nice. I'm wearing a freaking gown, man.
Girl,
Heck
yes, me too. I just got
my outfit just got delivered 2 days ago, and I'm very excited to make sure it fits.
Can we get a little teaser?
No, you can't. You can't.
Damn.
No,
I love it. Now the hype is really building. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll say here too, like, I'm not like trying to roast the Game Awards over this either. Like, I'm stoked that we have these. This is a problem the whole industry is trying to figure out, right? Like, IGN's getting, obviously gearing up for our own end of the year best ofs, and we're having literally this problem. I was in the discussions last year when we were going through all like the staff nominations and trying to doing the work of God of War has been nominated in 3, or not God of War, whatever game it was nominated in 3 different genres, like action, adventure, RPG, and one other one. Which one doesn't actually go in and then doing all this work. This is a pain. Can I say swears? I can say
Oh
swears on this
yes,
podcast.
absolutely.
This is a pain in the ass. Like it
Yeah.
sucks. Because we've evolved. Like we have evolved what games are, but we have not evolved our terminology. We're still using terminology that was figured out like 2 decades ago. And I don't know whose job it is to say, no, these are the words we're using now.
I'll be the guy. Just holler
guy?
at me. Let's just all nominate me to figure out the words we're gonna use.
Well,
game
you'll be
industry.
the
I'll
guy.
get
You just make up a term blast, and we'll just all retweet you. We'll make you go viral, and it'll be the new
I got
standard.
this.
I think that's how it works.
One more category that I think could use some improvement,
Yeah.
right? Is I do think the Game of the Year category could use some like sprucing up in the way that I was having a conversation with Danny Pena of Gamertag Radio the other night, and we were going back and forth about Stray being nominated because I was very much like, Stray is not one of the best games of the year. I'm sorry, like it's not. But he was like, no, like it's a game that got mainstream appeal. It was a game that is very popular, right? And it's a game that spoke to so many people. And then he asked the question, does Game of the Year need to be 9s and 10s? Which made me pause and made me think like, I don't know. Like, do we need to separate out Game of the Year from Best Game is my question for the Game Awards. Because I do think there could be merit in the idea of, yeah, we have like Time Magazine's Person of the Year, right? I know like there are award shows that do have Artist of the Year to represent the impact that an artist had, right? Oscars doesn't have Movie of the Year, right? It's Best Picture. And I think a lot of award shows do award like Best Album or Best Rap Album or whatever the category is. I think separating Best Game from trending Game of the Year or Game of the Year could maybe help fix the idea of, oh yeah, okay, because if we're going off of popularity, where is Wordle? Well, Wordle came out this year.
Right,
it wasn't, or at least had impact this year and wasn't nominated at all. Best puzzle. Oh my god, I would love to vote for Wordle
that's a
somewhere.
whole different conversation because phone and browser games are not considered real games by the people who show up and do this work. And it's not
It's
not
best
even
mobile category, right?
Is it actually in there?
I think so.
Yeah.
I know we never vote on it.
Yeah, we never vote on it
either.
either, unfortunately.
But yeah, I remember Marvel Snap was
and
nominated.
again, this is not people being like snubby or like a cognizant decision people are making, but like our game industry, the one that the four of us are the three of how many of us are there? I just looked at the screen and counted myself as a person.
Me and Britt are the ones with whiskey.
Like, we do not converse about mobile games at all, and yet they are just this massive size of this industry. So I mean that's like a whole other question when we're talking about Game of the Year. If everybody's playing Genshin Impact like worldwide, that's in best ongoing game, sure, but like
so the
not,
nominees for
mobile,
best mobile game this year are Apex Legends Mobile, Diablo Immortal, Genshin Impact, Marvel Snap, and Tower of Fantasy.
So no Wordle.
No Wordle. Yeah, so
give Wordle its
like
props.
that,
Make Wordle your Game of the Year.
So the description for the Game of the Year nominee, going back to what Bless is saying, is recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. And you're right. I feel like that's that's really limiting language, though, because I think of a game that maybe I loved a lot, and nothing's coming to mind because I'm a few whiskeys in. But if it had a lot of performance issues, I feel like I cannot nominate it for the Game of the Year category.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, it's not the best across all technical fields, so snob. I can't nominate it. But so I think we once had a conversation on what's good. Maybe it was like best water cooler moment or best like trending game or something that was like, yo, maybe it's not the most funded and polished experience, but damn if it isn't the most fun experience. So I think that would be a really fun category to add to this.
Yeah. I'm looking at like
Pokemon for it.
I'm looking at my list of Game of the Year or games ranked for the year, right? Because I kind of have the conundrum of God of War Ragnarok is a game that if we're talking about that, what you just mentioned, right? Like technical achievement, the creative fields, all that stuff. God of War Ragnarok is like smack dab in the top 2 for me, right? I'm nominating that 100%. But God of War Ragnarok, I don't know if it's in my top 2 favorite games of the year, right? Like there are games that I played that I think might stick with me longer in terms of, oh man, I really fucked with this game more than God of War Ragnarok. And that's not a quality thing. That's more of a impact thing of, Sonic Frontiers is an example. I don't know if I'll say Sonic Frontiers hit me more than God of War, but like Sonic Frontiers is a game that I really fucked with. That was a game that, as somebody who likes Sonic and as somebody who just likes platformers and that kind of game in general, every design decision in that game spoke to me. That said, that game has so many issues. Like, I let off my review of that game saying that it's a 3 out of 5 game that I love, like a 5 out of 5 game, right? That's one of my favorite games that I played this year. I'll never nominate it for a best game category, right? But I might nominate it for a Blessings Game of the Year category if I had my own category.
Add it, Keely.
In that sense.
Add it. There you go.
Yeah.
Add it. Yeah. No, that I get it. That's totally the other. That's it. That's exactly what we've been talking about. Also, where the fuck is Signalis? I don't know how to say it. The top-down 2.5D survival horror game. Where's that? I don't see that anywhere on here.
I don't think enough people played it in time for the.
Where is Trombone Champ?
Where is Trombone Champ?
See? You know,
also,
I think...
is there a best puzzle category? Okay, so here's a question for you.
Yep.
What genre is Immortality? Like, if it were to get nominated, which one would it get nominated for?
It's in Best Game Direction.
That's not a genre.
You're right. It's not. But I'm trying to see.
I would put it in, because FMV isn't a genre, right? Like, FMV is a format.
No. I nominated... No, I can't say that.
I don't... What would you put it in?
I guess I'll put it in, like, adventure game.
Yeah, I was thinking adventure.
Like choose your own adventure, even though it's not choose your own adventure, but...
I would do, like, I guess lacking anything else, puzzle?
Yeah.
That's not right.
fitting.
That doesn't feel right, but it feels righter than...
Well, I feel like puzzle and adventure,
I'm looking up on Steam to see what Sam Barlow thinks.
It's like, what genre's your game?
But that's why it's nominated for Best Game Direction, because it's something new and unique. Therefore, there you go. Give it a shot.
They have it under Hidden Object, Choose Your Own Adventure.
Hidden Object?
It is! It's a Hidden Object game! That's a genre! There's nothing else I would nominate in that category this year.
I don't know if there's been another Hidden Object game this year.
Oh, there super are. Yeah. All over mobile indie space, like all the time.
But we don't talk about mobile, remember?
No, we don't. It's like a Professor Layton almost.
The other thing is that IGN, I don't think would ever, or like any big outlet would ever have a hidden object.
Could you
category.
imagine?
Under no circumstances.
That's Kaylee's new category next year. Hidden object genre.
I would love for him to do that. Like every single year, there's just a random new category that he only does that year. Like this year's hidden object. Next year is like best
Strand
escape
game.
room. Yeah, best Strand game. Like what are the most niche genres you can get into?
I love it. Well, if you're looking for some new innovation, Jeff Keighley, you know where to go is Blessing and Rebekah. They have all the ideas. And we have more news just ahead, but first, a word from this week's sponsors. This episode of What's Good Games is brought to you by Factor 75. With the bustling holiday season just around the corner, it's the perfect time to plan ahead with Factor, a ready-to-eat meal delivery service. They shop, prep, cook, and deliver to your door so you can enjoy chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals during the holidays, minus the hassle. Plus, with 34 meals per week, including Gourmet Plus, Keto, Calorie Smart, Vegan and Veggie, and over 36 weekly add-ons, you'll have plenty of nutritious, flavorful options to choose from. The holidays are already jam-packed, and who has time to plan and cook 3 meals a day? Not I. Luckily, Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals make it easy to fuel up fast when you're on the go. Save time with meals delivered ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. Factor is cheaper than dining out. Put the money you save towards holiday fun and you time. And thanks to Factor's commitment to ingredients with integrity, you can enjoy flavorful, chef-crafted meals guilt-free. Not only does Factor offer fast, simple solutions when I'm too busy to cook, they also help me stay on top of my goals. With offerings like Protein Plus and Keto, I can stay on track. This is definitely going to come in handy during the holidays when it seems like there are cookies everywhere. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, just throwing that out there. And maybe you're wondering what kind of food Factor has. Well, Andrea loved a 3-bean vegan chili with cornbread casserole and tofu-based crema, and she's not even vegan. It was that good. And the chimichurri ground beef bowl with cauliflower rice and zucchini pepper medley was super tasty comfort food for those cold nights without any of the guilt. Because yes, it does get cold in California too. If you're ready to try some meals for yourself, head to go.factor75.com/whatsgood60 and use code whatsgood60 to get 60% off of your first box. That's code whatsgood60 at go.factor75.com/whatsgood60 to get 60% off of your first box. Today's episode is also sponsored by PayPal Honey, the easy way to save when shopping on your iPhone or computer. Now, we've all been shopping online for years now, but when it comes to prepping for the holidays, it can feel a bit overwhelming. With Black Friday deals already underway, how do you know if you're getting the best deals now or later? With Honey, that's how. Searching for promo codes to get discounts is frustrating and sometimes downright annoying. I mean, who has their promo codes cut out and ready to go when they're late night TikTok shopping anyway? But with Honey manually searching for coupon codes, it is a thing of the past. Honey is the free shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best one it finds to your cart. So imagine you're shopping on one of your favorite sites. When you check out, the Honey button appears and all you have to do is click Apply Coupons. Wait a few seconds as Honey searches for coupons it can find for that site, and if Honey finds a working coupon, you'll watch the prices drop. So you may or may not know, there's a little event next month called the Game Awards. Maybe we've been talking about it on this week's episode. And even though I have an entire closet of dresses I've worn only once, I cannot help myself and I have a great need to buy something new. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I know there are some of you out there who can relate. Anyway, I found a contender online recently, and Honey saved me almost $30. And that's what, 2 drinks at the JW Marriott where all the Game Awards pre-funking takes place? All I had to do was literally click a button, and I saved $30. So you have to give it a shot. And if you don't already have Honey, you could be straight up missing out. And by getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting What's Good Games. We never recommend something we don't use, and Andrea and me, I almost said Andrea and Britt, but you know who I am, we use Honey constantly. Get PayPal Honey for free at joinhoney.com/whatsgood. That's joinhoney.com/whatsgood. Next up, speaking of awards, nominations for the Grammys video game soundtrack category have been revealed, and this comes from Game Rant. So the Grammy Awards have announced the nominations for a staggering 91 categories, but the gaming world will be keeping an eye on the newly introduced honor for video game soundtracks. Music crafted for video games has been eligible for the award since 2011, but a dedicated category marks substantial progress in the recognition afforded to such a crucial and respected aspect of the interactive industry. So Grammy nominations for video game soundtracks have not been non-existent, just few and far between. Since Journey won Best Score Soundtrack for Visual Media at the 2013 ceremony, additional accolades have come only more recently, with Kirby's song Midnight's Revenge nominated for Best Arrangement or Instrumental, which it won during the 2022 Grammy Awards. So before we read you the nominees, here's the eligibility requirements: that the game must have released between Friday, October 1st, 2021, and between that and Friday, September 30th, 2022. And here is your list of nominees. So Aliens, Fireteam Elite, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Dawn of Ragnarok, Call of Duty Vanguard, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Old World. Bless, knee-jerk reaction, let's go.
Knee-jerk reaction honestly, it's not that knee-jerk because I talked about this morning on KFC.
Fair.
But my initial reaction was like, oh man, I don't like this nominee list. I feel like there were way better soundtracks last year. But then while talking through it with Tim Geddes, he pointed out the fact that like all these soundtracks are very much on the score side of things, right? They're all like orchestral, or at least lean toward more of that like cinematic approach when you think about score versus soundtrack. And I wonder if the Grammys are trying to favor those over something like Chicory, that I would say is like one of my favorite soundtracks of last year, but I think does go for more of the like chiptune / like not as orchestral side of things. And with that being said, right, I look at these nominees and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, like Austin Wintory is a very talented musician. Austin Wintory has done incredible work with other games like Journey, right? I look at Call of Duty Vanguard, and that's Bear McCreary, somebody else who's done fantastic work in games like God of War. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, that video game had a fantastic soundtrack. And yeah, like these are all games that I can understand how you get there. And so with that, I ain't mad at this nominee list. I don't know if it'd be the same as my list, but I ain't mad at it.
Okay, Rebekah, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like I see how we got here. All of these are obviously like extremely talented people who did good scores. I think what I'm seeing here is kind of a lack of imagination on behalf of the Grammys. Like I think I don't know. I don't pay attention to the Grammys. I don't know what their process is for selecting these.
Same. You're speaking my language. Keep going.
I wonder, do the people who make these lists play many video games, and are they tuned in to all the different kinds of video games, or just like a certain big kind of video game that everybody. What is Old World? I don't know what that one is. But
it's funny because I read it and I was like, is that the sequel to New World, the prequel to New World?
Yeah, so I'm not mad. I would encourage the wonderful people at the Grammys to explore maybe a broader horizon of different types of games and different types of music that make up those games. But yeah, these, this is fine.
Yeah, I was also curious about this list as well. I think, and again, like I don't want to take away the recognition from the folks who did work on these soundtracks, because I mean they're incredible and beautiful and way more than anything I could even ever dream to make. Like I'm not trying to say like they don't deserve the nominee, but yeah, I would be curious to know what's the process, who are the people making these decisions, and for us, as people I know for sure play certain games, there are those moments when you're playing a game and a soundtrack just hits and you're like, oh, and I think of Halo Infinite, for example. There are say what you want about the game, but I think that campaign has some fucking hits, and especially there's the one main theme there. So yeah, like I'd be curious to know what that is all about. But I guess at the end of the day, like cool, video games are getting more recognition. I don't know how that's necessarily a bad thing at all. So
yeah, I would want, in the same way that we were just talking about with the Game Awards, right? I would love either them to be more inclusive in their category in terms of, let's get different types of soundtracks. Like I didn't realize that this went all the way up until September this year in terms of what the span is. And if that's the case, where is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? Like that should for sure be there. That's one of the best soundtracks of the year. And I think there's where's Elden Ring?
Yeah.
Well, where's Xenoblade?
Where's Live Alive?
Horizon Forbidden West. Like I think of all these gorgeous, beautiful songs, but hey. That's why we're not at the top. We don't know.
I'm not in charge of
that said,
the Video Game Award Committee.
I would add, and I know, I feel like getting this one category is already like the Grammys going like, all right, we're giving them a bone. But also, if you're gonna go this direction and go very much for score in this category, then I would love another category that is video game soundtrack, right? Video game music in general, because I think that is what makes video game music unique, is the fact that there is so much versatility in video game music that you can get like Deltarune or Celeste, like type of chip tune, or you can get God of War style, like Bear McCreary orchestral score and everything in between. And like, oh, man, there's so many Japanese games that should be on there. Like, where's Nier Replicant? Like, there's so many games that I think
Genshin Impact.
Yeah, like there's so many games that I think could get a shout out here that I think are being excluded out by a narrow view of what they're viewing this category as. And if that's the case, like make another category, or be more broad with this category.
Yeah, like add that Wu-Tang song at the end of Shredder's Revenge. You know what I mean? Like that, oh my god, it is deserving of so much. So there we go.
Where's Sonic Frontiers?
Can we just talk about Sonic Frontiers real quick? Like, we'll talk about it in the hands-on section, but because you've talked about it a lot.
Rebekah walks away. Rebekah's like, I can't do this.
She's like, I'm done.
I can't talk about Sonic Frontiers.
I love your analysis. Would you say it's like your dream game, but it's a 3 out of 5? Is that?
Yeah. That's what I mentioned. I mentioned on the review that like they made my perfect Sonic game, but it's a 3 out of 5.
And where can people find that review, Blessing?
YouTube.com/kindafunnygames. I talk about it on the Gamescast. We did a Gamescast review, but I also talk about it every single day, I feel like, on the show. And so you can tune into any of our shows and listen to me talk about Sonic. But like, do you want my quick spiel on Sonic?
Yeah,
like,
why not? Why the fuck not? Let's do it.
So I'm somebody who very much adores Sonic. I appreciate Sonic. It's funny because there are so many games that I like better than Sonic, and people will ask me like, is Sonic your favorite gaming franchise? And I'm like, no. But in the way that I like Sonic, I compare to how people love Hello Kitty, or how they love a brand that they just identify with. Like, I just love Sonic as an idea. Like, I played hella Sonic games, and I really love Sonic games, right? But like, the original Sonic trilogy, Sonic 1, 2, and 3, played through, fucking love. Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, skipped. Like, and I've gone back and tried to play them, and I'm like, these games ain't great. I'm sorry. But like, Sonic Heroes was a very important game for me during the PS2 era. Sonic Unleashed, I really dug. Sonic Colors, I really dug. Sonic Generations, I fucking loved. Sonic Forces, I played. And I've played a couple of the bad ones as well, right? But like, for the most part, I've kind of avoided the bad ones. Never played Sonic 06. Never played Sonic Boom. Didn't play the Wii, Sonic in the Lost Rings, whatever the fuck. But like, I have a history of Sonic, right? And I have an appreciation of Sonic. And leading into Sonic Frontiers at that initial reveal of it, not the initial reveal, actually, the follow-up reveal where they showed more of the gameplay and talked about what the game is, when they show that they're kind of capturing this vibe of it is like Breath of the Wild and like has like the open areas of like a Mario Odyssey, and like they're showing all the gameplay. I'm like, you're speaking my language. You're speaking my language here.
Yeah.
But I did have the worry because before they even did the reveal, there were leaks and reports about how Sega's working on a Sonic game that is taking inspiration from Breath of the Wild, and I read that and I was like, it's not real. It's not true, because how do you make that game? That game can't exist. You can't make a Sonic game that's Breath of the Wild because it's Sonic. But then seeing the actual gameplay, I'm like, oh, I see what they're doing here. And I've had this tempered excitement because I think everything I saw from the gameplay stuff. I'm taking a while to get there, by the way. I'm sorry. Everything I saw from the gameplay stuff. Oh no, I love it.
I'm here for the journey, man. Just keep going. We're good. We're cruising.
Everything I saw from it spoke to me in terms of this is the direction I want from Sonic. I want it to be go wherever you want. Rails all over the place, platforming challenges all over the place. These little bite-sized Sonic levels that you can find in the open world, boss fights, making more character action, like every single decision they're making around the Sonic game, I was like, let's freaking go. But then I'll see the IGN first gameplay and I'm like, why is the popping so bad? Like, what is going on here? Why does this game look so rough? And so because of that, I've had the tempered excitement. I started playing the game for review, and initially I was like, oh man, this is rough. This is really rough. But the more I played it, the more I was like, no. I mean, yes, it's rough, but also, this is a really great direction for a Sonic game, right? And the gameplay loop specifically, because it is you're playing a Sonic, you're out in this open in these melancholic open levels, and you are doing platforming challenges. You are collecting the collectibles that are pretty much all over the place. But then you are encountering bosses. Once you beat a boss, you get access to a portal gear. You take the portal gear, you spend it at a a portal or a shrine. You spend it, let's say a shrine. You spend it at a shrine. You then get access to a linear Sonic level. You beat that level and you beat the challenges associated with that level, which could be beat it in this amount of time, collect all the 5 red rings, collect 100 rings, and finish it. You do that, the more challenges you get, the more keys you get. The keys you spend on the Chaos Emeralds, right? You collect 7 Chaos Emeralds to then face the final boss of the level and then go on to the next thing. That gameplay loop is fucking fantastic.
It sounds,
my favorite thing about the game.
You're selling me over here. I'm not gonna lie.
It's fun as hell, and they absolutely nailed what the cycle of Sonic should be, along with like having in some cool mechanics in there and some creative stuff in there in terms of the side loop ability that is essentially the trail that Sonic leaves behind him if you press triangle. And like if you do that, if you like run in a circle, it'll stun enemies if you run in a circle around them, right? Or you can use it in the open world to do Korok Seed like challenges where you see a rock and you're like, that rock is positioned in a weird way. Yeah, it's suspicious. What if I side loop around it? Boom. Okay, I got rings and some collectibles. That mechanic, I think, adds so much to it, both in terms of diversifying how combat and gameplay works, but then also giving you something to use to interact with the environment in a unique way. So I think, again, a lot of great ideas in this that is just muddied by a lot of bad execution. That, again, brings it down to a 3. If I had this same exact game and it ran clean and it looked better and had way more polish, I'll be a 5 out of 5 easily. It's just the fact that, like, they got it. I guess they wanted to get it out the door because it's Sonic and they're like, it's going to sell. Put it out. Like, let's make this money. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Sonic Frontiers too. That's basically the bulk of what I'm saying here.
Though you've honestly like kind of sold me on it, and I think the key word there is tempered excitement or expectations or whatever the E word you use, because I think that's so critical, right? Because that was one of my things with Sonic Frontiers is I also saw like Breath of the Wild and Sonic. I'm like, wow, I haven't played a Sonic game since the Genesis, and that looks fucking cool and it sounds really cool. But then as Andrea and Ree were playing it and they were talking about some of their concerns about how the world felt a little empty and the pop-in was really bad, I was like, maybe I'll stay away. But it sounds like the gameplay loop is there, but you just gotta expect some rough edges.
That was the thesis of my TikTok review that we did for Kind of Funny, is that Sonic Frontiers nails one thing, and that's fun, right? It looks ugly in places. It runs rough a lot of the time.
I thought you were going for Sonic Frontiers nails one thing, and it's disgusting.
And it's disgusting. Sonic fans love one thing, and they're disgusting. But no, like, the game is really fun to play, and again, like even in some gameplay decisions, there's some like weird stuff here and there, but I got lost in it. Like I played 23 hours and I could legitimately play 20 more hours of Sonic Frontiers. Like I had that much fun with it. And so I would recommend it, especially if you're a Sonic fan. And if you're not a Sonic fan but you like platformers, I would even say give it a shot. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. But I think for the people that so far seeing online and looking at reactions to it, the people that dig it really dig it.
Yeah.
And so it might be worth trying out.
This is a great example, I think, of someone, a reviewer, who's able to enjoy a game for what it is and be like, I acknowledge its shortcomings, but it's still fun. Because I think what happens is when you see folks who rate a game, and everyone has their own system, and this is why it's important, friends, to find a reviewer that you relate with in their reviewing style, because sometimes folks will review a game, and if it performs poorly from a technical perspective, they'll dock several, if you're going to do a grading scale, points from it, and then all of a sudden you just see like a 5 out of 10, and you're like, oh, that game must suck. But that doesn't necessarily include the fun factor.
Yeah, there's so much context in there that you should read into that will help inform your decision. Wait until we talk about Pokemon.
I feel like this is like kind of foreshadowing what's to come. So let's get through these next two.
Some might say Pokemon Scarlet is the Sonic Frontiers of Pokemon games.
Oh, but that's
we'll get there.
Okay. Oh God,
it's better than Sonic Frontiers. Is what
I'm so excited. Okay, let's just go through these real quick then. So, The Witcher 3's next-gen upgrade arrives for free in December. This is our first, in case you missed it. So, the long-promised next-gen update for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which is really a current-gen upgrade now, will land on December 14th. CDPR has announced. The update will add ray tracing and other advanced graphical features and a new native version of Witcher 3 for PS5 and Xbox Series X. Windows PC players will also get a patch offering similar graphical improvements. So, have you two played The Witcher 3?
Nope.
Blessing?
I played maybe like 20 hours of it, but I never finished it.
Okay.
I got lost looking for Dandelion.
That's fair. So this
right,
actually, you two then are the perfect audience for this question. Are you going to go and play The Witcher 3 with this next gen upgrade, or are you like, it's a game of the past, I don't need to go back and play it?
There's too many games is the problem. Like there's so many. The older I get, like the less time I have to spend playing games that came out years ago. I don't have time for that crap. Like,
and that's like the crux of my question actually is, is it worth going back and playing for you, knowing how highly regarded The Witcher 3 is? It's not. Okay, interesting.
It's also so long, right? Like, I know if I'm gonna do this, if I actually want to finish it, then I'm committing to this just beefy thing. No, I've got Pokemon right now. I have code for Sonic Frontiers that I need to finally get around to checking out. Still got to finish God of War. I keep hoping there's going to be some Elden Ring DLC showing up at some point that maybe I'll get to play. I've got other games I want to play for like Game of the Year consideration. I haven't gotten around to Norco yet. It sounds great. So yeah, I just got this like endless pile of things in front of me. Why would I be looking back, man? Not full speed ahead.
I totally understand. What about you, Bless? Are you going to go back and find Dandelion?
I think I will. I think the make or break for me is going to be if my save data transfers. If it doesn't, I'm not starting that game over from scratch. If it does, I think I will, because I really enjoyed my time playing The Witcher 3 when I was playing it. The only thing that held it back for me is not even like an issue with the game. It's just an issue with me, which is I am not a fantasy person. Whenever there's a fantasy property, I am like so disinterested. I've never been into Lord of the Rings, never been into Game of Thrones. Like I prefer Fallout over Skyrim. Like any chance you give me to like not interact with something fantasy, I take that chance. The exception was Harry Potter, and then J.K. Rowling ruined that for me. So like fantasy is kind of more difficult for me to get into. That said, The Witcher 3 had fantastic writing and had fantastic side quests, and I loved getting lost in that. And I think this game coming out for PS5, I think that'll mean it'll run better. I imagine it'll run hella smooth, right? Mm-hmm. Performance mode, all that stuff. That sounds like a really fun way to play this game, and I would like to maybe see that adventure through. So I think I'm gonna give it a shot.
Wow, all right. I'm curious to see how you do, since you don't like fantasy, but we'll have to check back in with you. And finally, do we have any Streets of Rage fans here on this panel?
Moderately, like enough to go enjoy the thing that you are about to say.
All right,
I'm more of a Double Dragon guy.
Oh, okay. All right. So Streets of Rage adaptation from John Wick creator has been acquired by Lionsgate. This comes from IGN. So Lionsgate has acquired the motion picture rights for the Sega game, opening the door for a film adaptation of the popular franchise. Derek Kolstad, who has previously written John Wick and all of its sequels, will write and produce the adaptation. Alongside Kolstad, Sega's Toru Nakahara and DJ2 Entertainment's Dimitri M. Johnson, Timothy I. Stevenson, and Dan Jevons will produce the film. Nakahara, who produced the first two Sonic the Hedgehog movies to massive box office success, is overseeing the project for Sega alongside Shuji Utsumi. Does this flip anyone's skirt up? Get you hot and bothered?
It'll be fun. Imran will drag me to it, and I'll enjoy myself. That's what's gonna happen.
There you go, Imran. Look what you have to, this is what you have to look forward to. It's great. Marriage is lovely.
No, he knows. He knows exactly what he signed up for.
Absolutely is. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like at this point, I feel like there's a new film, TV adaptation being announced every week. I'm just like, it'll come when they come, and then I'll try to enjoy them. But other than that, I can't even keep up.
That's my thing is, when are they going to start coming out? Like, I feel like they announce one every week. Where is Twisted Metal for Peacock?
Dude, thank you. Are you excited for Twisted Metal?
Oh, I'm so excited for Twisted Metal.
I feel like you're the first person that I've talked to who's excited for Twisted Metal like I am.
How can you look at that cast and not immediately get excited? They have Falcon playing the main person in this Twisted Metal show.
Oh my god.
They got I forget who else is in there, but the last time I checked, it was a stat cast. I'm all about it.
I don't know actor. I don't watch film and TV a lot. Like it's just not my thing. But what I do know is Twisted Metal. That was one of my favorite games growing up. I played the shit out of it with my dad. Twisted Metal 1 through 3. That was what we did all week, all night. And so I'm just excited to see how that even turns out. I don't even care if it's awful. I just want to hear Sweet Tooth's chuckle. I want to hear Axel say Axel Power. I want Minion to be in there, and then I'll be good. Just get rid of Grasshopper. I hate Grasshopper. She can go.
And that's my thing, right? Am I excited for it to be a 10 out of 10 show? No, because I don't think it will be. It's
excitement.
Peacock. But am I excited to see a dumbass like Twisted Metal TV show on Peacock that's gonna have Will Arnett in it and Samoa Joe? Yes.
Yeah.
Like yes.
Yeah.
This sounds fun. This sounds like a fun time, and that's where I'm coming from with it.
I felt the same way about the 2 Sonic movies and about Detective Pikachu. None of those were 10 out of 10 films by any stretch of the imagination, but they were, silly and actually, all right and really fun. And honestly, if we can just hit the line of, hey, yeah, that's a pretty good time on more of these adaptations, yeah, I'm sold.
Absolutely.
And also the premise reminds me of 30 Minutes or Less. I think that was the name of the movie. It was the movie with what's his name, Aziz Ansari, and the guy that looks like the second evolution version of the guy from Social Network. You know what I'm talking about? Jesse Eisenberg.
No,
I think I'm thinking of
idea.
Jesse Eisenberg.
I don't know if I'm loving this description.
Or maybe it's the
Could
same
be
guy.
about anything.
Yeah, but anyway, 30 Minutes or Less was a movie about like a delivery driver who like got kidnapped by some thugs and then had a bomb strapped to him and was like, "Go steal some shit for us, or else we'll kill you." And like when you read the Twisted Metal description for the show, it's kind of like, yeah, like, hey, this is a delivery driver who is like in this post-apocalyptic world and he has to like deliver some shit. And it's Falcon from MCU, and I'm like, yes. This sounds great.
You're right. Yeah. The premise is the driver takes a job to deliver a package across a post-apocalyptic wasteland being chased by marauders. And it's an action comedy, which is 100% the route they need to go for this game. Because the whole idea of Twisted Metal is that there's this car combat tournament and the winner gets a wish granted by Calypso. And everyone's fighting for their own thing. And so it's cheesy and it's dumb and I love it so much. And I just cannot wait. Do we know when that's coming out, Bless? Okay, filming began on May 2022, and it was expected to wrap on September 2nd, but instead wrapped early on August 27th. So I don't know.
That sounds like it's next year. That sounds like 2023.
The Last of Us what? HBO's Last of Us what? You're going to be overshadowed by Twisted Metal on Peacock.
Thank you. And Gran Turismo the movie.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's happening. Was that just announced too? Or has that been a thing?
That's happening next year.
Okay.
I want to say. I think they might have just wrapped filming.
See, I can't keep track.
Or started. I don't know which. There's so many projects. Where's BioShock? Where's Fallout? I really want that Fallout TV show.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you because there's too many and I can't keep track, and I ran out of fucks to give a long time ago. I'll just sit here and enjoy them when they come to us. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, oh my god, I'm going to let Bless and Rebekah loose, and they're going to talk all about Pokémon Scarlet and Violet. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second segment of the What's Good Games podcast, where we talk about what we've been playing in any preview events we may or may not have been to. And this week, I have Blessing and Rebekah here to talk all about Pokemon Scarlet and or Violet, depending on what they played. So, like I said at the top of the show, we typically don't get early copies of Nintendo games, so I am so thrilled to have you two here to talk about these. And I think for me, like what I've been really excited about, I mean, I've had, again, the theme of this week's episode is what? Tempered excitement, tempered expectations. And I feel like that's what I always have when it comes to Pokemon, is we know there have been some changes, right? You have this open world, which of course takes place in the Paldea region. You have those 3 routes of progression. You have Path of Legends, Victory Road, and then Starfall Street, I think is...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Operation Starfall, yeah.
Okay, Operation Starfall, so much more Call of Duty than I gave it credit for. And then you have the terrestrialized Pokemon. So I guess first I'd just like to hear, we'll start with you, Bless. Did you play Scarlet or Violet? Who was your starter, and what are your overall like quick thoughts? And then Rebekah will do the same.
I played Pokemon Scarlet. My starter was Fuecoco.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
overall, oh my god, I'm in love with Fuecoco. Overall thoughts. I love this game like a lot. Like I am hooked on this game. I've been so, I guess, like down on Pokemon for the whole generation, pretty much, right? Because like, you know, I was somebody who grew up with Pokemon Blue, played Pokemon Gold, played Pokemon Emerald on Game Boy Advance, and that was kind of the end of my Pokemon journey for a while. Like, I'd watched the anime as well, too, and I have so much nostalgia for Pokemon because I played Pokemon Stadium and, like, hella Pokemon games of that era.
Yeah.
But I did have a stopping point toward the DS era and in the 3DS era, mainly because I didn't have a DS or a 3DS growing up. But when the Switch came out, I was so excited to get back to Pokemon. And, you know, I started with Pokemon Let's Go, and I enjoyed it for what it was, right? I was just looking at it as a remake that is more casual, that was taking Pokemon Go mechanics. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll play this for what it is. But then when Pokemon Sword is coming out, I was one of those people that was like, all right, console Pokemon, it's time to innovate. It's time for a step forward. And then I started Pokemon Sword, and I was like, okay, this seems like more of what I played like literally decades ago at this point. And it didn't set my world on fire. Pokemon Arceus, I didn't get enough time to play because that came out around Elden Ring, Horizon, Seafood, Dying Light 2, and all those games. But I played like maybe like 5 to 7 hours of it, and I was kind of like, all right, this isn't commanding my attention either, even though I know it's a big different kind of Pokemon game. But Pokemon Scarlet, playing through it feels so refreshing in a way that I think I wanted from Pokemon Sword. The things that they're talking about in terms of it being open world and it having these 3 big different quest lines, I think that stuff actually adds a lot to what the Pokemon experience is. It is legitimately an open world game, right? There are very few boundaries they give you in terms of don't go here, right? It seems like you can pretty much explore the bulk of the map without any sort of like upgrades or any sort of like the things blocking you, right? The game just kind of lets you go wherever. And in the 3 big quest lines, they give you all 3 quest lines give you a list of things that you can do in any order. And so it is, I have 8 gym leaders to take out. What order do I want to take the gym leaders on? And it legitimately works that way. It's not just, hey, yeah, like you can go to this gym leader, but there's no reason for you to go to this gym leader because they're going to get stomped anyway. It's like, no, you can do that stuff and we're not going to stop you. Like if you want to try harder to beat this gym leader that's a few levels over than you, go for it. And I had multiple times where I'm going to a gym leader, fighting them, and they're like stronger than me. I persevere and I'm like, yeah, let's go. And then I go over to another part of the map. I find a gym leader that's weaker because that gym leader was probably supposed to be done before the other one. And like, again, the game just lets me do that.
So it doesn't scale. It's set.
It is set. It does not scale. Okay. But it surprisingly works pretty well. And there's like early on in the game, there was a moment where I'm just like walking around and I take the wrong path and I have like level 5 Pokemon and I meet somebody who has like level 45 Pokemon and I'm like, oh, okay, this game really just lets me go wherever and like has that level of freedom. And I found that very impressive. And that existed throughout the game, right? Where those open world moments continued happening in a way that I don't think I've ever experienced in a Pokemon game. So that I absolutely love. The writing and story, surprisingly, I fucking love. And that's the thing I never look forward to in a Pokemon game.
That was one of my concerns because usually everyone just feels so plain.
It's so good, and I want to let Rebekah hop in, and so I'll wrap up by saying like, yeah, like story is great. Another thing that I'm usually bored with in Pokemon games are the Pokemon designs. I've always felt like they've been stale and repetitive, and like, hey, here's 3 cute Pokemon, now here's a bird, now here's a rodent. This game does that too, but I think the further you get, the more inspired the Pokemon designs are, and I have new favorite Pokemon that I've met in this game.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some that I really like. But yeah, like I've had a fantastic time. The monkey paw though curls in this game, and this game runs like trash.
No,
Yeah,
that was my biggest
it runs
concern.
so bad. And I want Rev to talk about that part because Rev has played way more Pokemon Arceus than I have, and so I think that'll be a good comparison point. But I tried playing this game on docked many times because I would play handheld at work and then I'd run out of battery and be like, okay, I have to play this docked. And playing it docked at some times hurt my eyes. I was like, this is bad, like bad, like nearly unplayable at times bad. Handheld on my OLED ran better than docked, but even still, it does not run amazingly on handheld. There are frame drops. That stuff does exist. And, you know, the game is so good that I persevere through it, and I still love this game, but I am shocked at how bad this game runs a lot of the time.
That's so surprising because there's so many, like Xenoblade, for example, Breath of the Wild game that came out in 2017 that runs really well considering the hardware it's on, and it's so open world. Okay.
I think it might be Game Freak's transition to 3D because this is the most like open big world 3D world that they've made in this instance.
Yeah.
And maybe they're struggling with that transition.
It's too bad Nintendo doesn't have any resources for them. You know, it's just too bad that there's no one they can turn to. That's
a small independent company, Nintendo, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'll stop. Rebekah, what do you feel? Hi.
Well, I'm playing Violet actually, Blessing.
Hell yeah.
I did also start with Fuecoco, who is my boy and the best boy. Though honestly, all three starters are really lovely. I love all the Pokemon designs. I agree with literally everything Blessing said. Like we were in lockstep about this. I am completely blown away that they let you go wherever you want. My journey was very weird in that like I looked at the beginning. They kind of gently recommend you can either go east or west. I mean, the doors go out of the city, east or west. You go whichever direction, and then you can sort of wander, and it does kind of gently scale in the sense that like the easier stuff is closer to you at the start, and then it gets harder the further up you go. But I ended up going out what turned out to be a slightly harder route, and I think what it wants you to do is sort of like zigzag back and forth like between the two. But I didn't. I just went straight up one side of the map, and everything was like hard. Like the Starfall Street. The bosses of all the Starfall stuff are kind of absurd if you're a little under leveled, and I had some legit I wiped through a couple bosses.
I think that's great.
It was so much fun, and I felt like so accomplished when I got to sort of the end of that side of the map. Like I got to a point where I realized in retrospect if I had gone a certain way I could have proceeded, but I didn't. Like it's really easy to get lost in this wonderful way because routes, like we're used to these very linear route structures where it's just follow this path, maybe there's like a little trainer over here or whatever. No, they have areas is what they're called, and it's basically like there'll be towns kind of dotted around, and there's a path that goes through. If you just want to follow the road, you'll get to the town, but you can just sort of wander off the side of the path and you'll end up like in this rocky area that goes into a swamp, and then there's a mountain over here, and then there's grass, and it's just like all over the place. I spent in the very first area between like the first town and the school, I seriously spent like 3 hours just getting lost, wandering up and down hills and like finding Pokemon and stuff. It's so easy to get distracted. I love that so much. It is like a truly open world. You can just go. I did like the harder side, and then the other side, like Blessing said, was like much easier for a period of time before I finally hit more hard things again. It sort of evened out, but the world is just so interesting. It's not like when I reviewed Arceus, I complained about how empty the world felt.
Yeah,
and how there would just be like caves with nothing in them, or like a Pokemon I've seen 20 times before, or like things on the map that look like they should be interesting and then they weren't. I don't think Scarlet and Violet has fully solved that. I do think there's some areas that still feel like, it's just like kind of some more empty terrain full of Pokemon. Like, you know, I wish there were some more interesting landmarks or some more interesting features. But it improves on it very significantly, like in a way that I think is good. Like there's towns dotted all over the place, and the towns like usually have very like interesting. They all have very unique and interesting designs. There'll be like items hidden all over the place. There's the Pokemon spread is really interesting in that you'll have. It's not where you just walk into a patch of grass and there's like a certain amount of there's certain Pokemon that can spawn in that grass. They kind of, the way they spawn feels more like wild creatures. So like, I mean, I don't want to like ruin all the Pokemon that are in this game for people, but to like do some like gentle ones. Like on the first route, there'll be like a flock of like 6 Hoppip that are all just sort of bouncing along together. Or like maybe later on, like on a harder route, you'll see a Skiploom in the middle of them, and then like a little entourage of them.
So they're acting more natural in their environment. Is that
they are like
good?
You'll be like on the water side, and there'll be Magikarp swimming in the water, and then one is like on the shoreline because it got too close, and it'll be flopping around because it landed. So there's a lot more of that, and it's so interesting. It's lovely. Like I love this. This is the structure they should go with. Like I am begging,
100%.
I'm begging you, Game Freak. Like this is it. You have stumbled upon gold. Maybe like I think they wanted to borrow like a few more of the Arceus mechanics. I did really love the system in Arceus for catching and battling. I don't think it would fit in this game necessarily because of how the economy of capturing Pokemon works. I think the Let's Go system sort of feeds into that. But anyway, all this it's great. Like there's a billion things that I'm
There's
sure
so
we'll try
much
to
in this
talk
game.
about. Really quick because I don't want to forget it later, but I want to talk about it later. Toby Fox, bringing him in on the soundtrack, bangers all.
The soundtrack is fucking fire.
God.
The soundtrack is so freaking good.
Oh, it's so good.
Ridiculous, dude.
Oh, that makes me so happy to
I
hear.
legitimately, I finished the game and I got chills, like just based on like music choices that they made.
This is the first time, and I think like since maybe Gen 3 that I think there are earworms. Like I can hum for you. I won't do it because it'll sound awkward on a microphone, but I can hum for you the main theme of this game right now. It's so good. Like the motif that keeps Fox is great at motifs.
There's a
so
moment
good.
where I legitimately, like, I was playing, I made it to a new area, a new song started, and I put the game down and I just Googled, did Keiichi Okami work on this game? Like, what's going on here? Like the varied songs, the varied sounds they use here, and like the stuff that I feel like is atypical for a Pokemon game in terms of the songs they're using here, like really hit. And like especially when you get further into the game, the way it's like, all right, like this thing has this vibe, this thing has this vibe, and it's all hitting. Oh man,
that makes me
it's
so
good.
happy because I feel like we've gotten to a point, like you were saying, Rebekah, when you think of Pokemon, you don't think of bangers like you used to. You're just like, that's not even a consideration anymore. Like this came out of left field for me. I mean, obviously, Toby, great, but I did not even think about the soundtrack.
Yeah, I have to actively keep reminding myself to talk about it because I'm not used to talking about music in Pokemon games. I'm like, no, this is, and also it's Toby Fox ass shit. It really is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like there's multiple little piano melodies that I can just imagine the little white dog playing, but then there's also like hopes and dreams level stuff from Undertale where it's just like firing on all cylinders. It's great. But anyway, like all the really good things, we can get into whatever details you want to get into. But as Blessing said, I won't even mince words. It runs like ass. It does. It's awful. I have a folder, a compilation folder on my computer of clips of it running like ass. 2 of our guides writers had it hard crash on them.
Same. I had crashed on me too.
I have not had a hard crash personally, but
there was a moment. There was a moment where I'm playing the game and I get to like a vista of the open world, and I swear to God, for like a millisecond, it flashed wireframes, and I was like, wait a second. And I was like, wait a second, no, I didn't just see that. It's ridiculous, dude. It is ridiculous.
So it lags. For starters, it lags really bad, especially when there's multiple things happening on screen. If there's like a water effect, like you're near the beach, or if there's like a Terra Pokemon nearby doing sparkly stuff, if it's raining or snowing or something, it cannot handle anything happening at any time for any reason. Characters. So if I talked about in my review of Arceus, I remember how like when you're flying on your flying Pokemon, if you look down and see the Pokemon below, some of them will be moving at just like a really slow frame rate. They'll look like stop motion animation characters. That happens in this too, but it's even closer than in Arceus. Like in Arceus, you had to kind of be a distance away for it to happen. But here, it's just like constantly like a few feet in front of you. All the characters are doing that. Sometimes the game can't decide if, like with draw distance, it can't decide if it needs to be loading them in or not. And so it'll just like flash characters really quickly on screen because it doesn't know if they're supposed to be there or not. Running through like the library of the school, it's like a closed room. It's not even in the open world, and things are just popping in and out of view, like flashing all over the screen. Just really ridiculous stuff. Everything. I don't know quite technically how to talk about this, but like there's like an aliasing thing, I think, where everything is just vaguely shimmery and blurry around the edges for some reason all the time.
I feel like that's the Nintendo Switch effect.
I don't know what that is, but
a
it doesn't
feature.
look good. There a bunch of textures are like there's some textures in this game that look good, like the clothing. The textures on the clothing look really good, and then there's other textures that are just randomly super low res. I think a really good example is on the front of all the Starfall Street things. They have like these big banners representing what type they are. The textures are just like I don't know how to. They're just.
There are
really
moments
low
where
res
I'm like, I look
for
at
no
my
reason.
coworkers and I'm like, does this not look like an N64 game? Like, why are these textures so bad? But there
then
are
others
other moments.
Fine.
Yeah,
Like,
there are other moments where the game looks pretty good. I'm like, yo, the art style here I think is good for a lot of the time, but just the text isn't complementing it in a way that works in tandem.
The design, like the cities, like the house,
the
your
cities,
house at the beginning, like the design is so nice.
The character designs are so like being in the I forget how much about this game is already known. There's areas where I'm meeting characters for the first time, and I'm like, oh man, I love this character. I'm not talking to them, I'm not spoken to them, but just the way their hair looks, just the way their clothes look, just the way they represent their style. Oh man, it's killing it. I love this. But then, yeah, just graphically, oh man, it's such a bummer to see it run this way. And I think it's the thing too where it feels like they're punching way above their weight in terms of the tech. Because if this game was running smoothly, if this game was running and like there wasn't the pop in, there wasn't the frame dips, there wasn't anything, I would be like, how the fuck did y'all pull this off? Because they're doing a lot in this game. Like when you're walking around a city, it is, or a town, it is legitimately like, oh, this is a town. People are walking around, like shit is happening. It feels lively. It's just the fact that like I don't think Game Freak has the stuff to support that tech wise.
But the thing is, I think if it ran like Arceus did, and I don't think Arceus ran well, but like Arceus was still on a level where it was forgivable. Like I was able, and Sword and Shield too. Like there was some weird jankiness to it, but I was able to sort of look past that and be like, yeah, this is like, you know, kind of annoying, and I'm gonna ding it for it, but like I can still play this. This is fine. The amount of times this just ruined otherwise wonderful moments in this game for me. Let me give you 2 examples.
Yeah.
So one of these moments, Whooper, we know there's a regional Whooper. Super excited about that guy. Wanted him on my team, nicknamed him Lord Whoops. Love this guy. He was evolving. And I won't spoil for people what he evolved into, but I was super stoked to see because I hadn't seen the evolution yet. I didn't know what it was. So I was like all geared up. And the camera, like I just got out of a battle, he leveled up, the camera pans down. Oh, Lord Whoops is evolving. And so the way I was on like a hillside in this battle, and the top half of the screen is Lord Whoops standing on the ground doing his little I'm a Lord Whoops dance, and the bottom half it clipped through the ground, and I'm just staring at a weird skybox void.
Oh no!
And so half of my screen is just the void during this like very climactic moment, and that's all I can stare at. I'm like, oh, what's happening here? Wait, Lord Whoops, what?
Did you have weird camera stuff like throughout the game, specifically in the battles?
All
like,
the time.
I swear to God, like I hit a point maybe halfway through the game where my battles just like I'm not seeing my Pokemon, or my like if I'm doing like a duel battle, I'm not seeing my partner's Pokemon because it's like zoomed in a weird way.
Yeah, so that's actually my second point. So I had a Pokemon that was in my main party for about the whole second half of the game, and again, it's a new Pokemon. I don't want to spoil it for people, but it's specifically a Pokemon where it's carrying something. It's carrying,
okay, I know exactly the one you're talking about because I think I had this exact same problem.
Yeah, and I don't know if like the camera on that Pokemon was like messed up in some way where it wasn't like centered on what the actual center of the Pokemon was because it was a model and it was carrying something. But something was not on. So constantly the camera would like not pick up. Like I would have to, like, you can move the camera freely in battles for the most part, except for big story battles, and look around, which is great because every time a battle started with this Pokemon out, I would just be like zoomed in behind it in a very weird way, or like I wouldn't be able to see it. And so I would constantly have to pan out so I could see what was going on. And I could never get it at an angle that made sense. But the really bad one was during one of the gym battles that was a little further through. It's a battle that takes place indoors inside a building on kind of like this battlefield. And I sent out this very interestingly shaped Pokemon for the final bout with this guy's final Pokemon. And this Pokemon appeared out of its Pokeball and it was stuck halfway in the floor. Oh. So I did this entire battle only able to see like the very top of its head and the thing it was carrying. And it was it was so distracting. It was so distracting. Oh. And so between that and the hard crashes and the lag and the constant like jittery and the frame rate being all over the place, like at no point did this game look good. I didn't think. There were moments where I could tell design wise it looked good. Yeah. And like somebody who did art and had like creative thoughts did a good job. It does. But it never looked good, and it ran like ass, and I'm just heartbroken because they did such a good job in every
because
other respect.
Otherwise it is like one of the best Pokemon games in years and years. It might be one of my, if not maybe my new favorite Pokemon game. It's aside from the fact that it runs like garbage.
It's like I feel like you're talking about Sonic Frontiers all over again.
That's what it felt like playing it. Because like Sonic Frontiers is a game that is like 24 hours long, and I'd never played a Sonic game that long, right? Usually Sonic games are pretty quick, no pun intended. And like I got far into it, and like in the review process being like, I can't believe I played 20 hours of Sonic and I want to play 20 hours more when I'm looking at this game and it's like some ugly shit on the screen, right? Pokemon give me the exact same experience where I'm like, I want to keep playing this game. I've beaten this game and I want to keep playing this game. I want to keep doing end game and post game content. And now but I'm also like, ugh, like half the time.
It's hard
like
because, sorry, real quick, like you guys are in this position, obviously, where you're playing a pre-release game. And I know there's, I think, a patch coming out, and you two probably know more about it than I do. But, you know, it's that thing of when this game, do you think that there's a future where those performance issues are patched and fixed, or do you think it's just beyond saving?
I think they have to do something, because here's the other thing. So Blessing, I don't know about Blessing. I have the day one patch. Everything I'm saying is on the day one patch. Folks, it does not get better, at least not on day one. But the thing that I'm really worried about is we did not have access to online. And that's why, so like my review that is up on IGN right now is a review in progress, because one of the big new features they talked about a lot in the marketing was this ability to co-op with 3 other people. And that is not turned on for the review period. So I don't know what you can do in that mode. I don't know how it works. And I don't know how well the game runs.
That's so stupid.
So we're not scoring it. And I am terrified that I'm going to get online with my friends on, this goes up Friday morning, so it'll probably be tonight. If you're listening to this on Friday night, and it's gonna run even more like ass, which is like unimaginable to me.
They join on your game and your screen just goes black, and it's like Nintendo giving you a middle finger. They're like, no,
right. Like the Mario. It's the Mario, the Twitter of Mario flipping the bird on.
Yeah. That's
like,
what
no.
I'm so afraid of, because I remember Sword and Shields online, and that was like Sword and Shield itself ran not amazing, but it was fine. It was Sword and Shield online. I have a very vivid memory in my head of a dude flying past me on a bike.
See, that's so odd that wasn't turned on, because that's one of the features I'm most excited about, because I did a lot of online in Sword and Shield, and there's still so many unanswered questions about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's online co-op progression and what that actually looks like. And I was really excited to ask y'all about it, but it sounds like you don't even know, because it hasn't even been turned on.
No. Now that we've gone through this therapy session of being able to vent, because like I feel like me, Reb, and I'm sure all the other reviewers have been like holding this in of like, what the fuck is going on with how this game runs?
Blessing texted me like, does this actually run like ass, or am I like imagining it? I'm like, no.
But man, is this a good video game aside from that? Like, man, did they absolutely nail it? Man, is this everything I wanted from Pokemon? Like, man, does this world feel expansive? Like, so many towns, so much shit to do, like, so much freedom in how you play. I love the Pokemon. Like, and that's the thing. That's the thing that I've complained about. Like, ever since, like, maybe Gen 3 or Gen 4, right? Where I've been like, every single Pokemon game is the same. Like, they all look the same. They're uninspired. They're not cool. They're not whatever. And, like, granted, like, I don't think it's a big step for new Pokemon, but it's like there are multiple times where I look at a name and like the pun they're making with the name, and I look at the Pokemon, I'm like, you fucking got me. I fucking love this little thing. Yeah. I think that it's really creative this time around.
Yeah, there's some real good gags in there. I think there's a couple Pokemon that some people will point at and go, that is a lazy, uninspired design, but I think it's a really good joke.
Yes, there's one of my favorite Pokemon in this game is basically that, where I'm like, this Pokemon is basically just an animal that exists in real life, but there's a pun they make in the name where I'm like, you got me. Like, I fucking love this thing, and then it evolves and it's an even better pun, and I'm like, you got me. Like, this is my shit right here.
I mean, props to that, right? Because there's, as of right now, 900-ish Pokemon, and then I don't know how many new ones are.
This brings it over 1,000.
It does. Okay, so like that's not easy to do, to keep it fun and exciting. Sure, we have ice cream Pokemon, we have garbage bag Pokemon, we have sandcastle Pokemon, and now apparently we have some new ones to look forward to, and I think that's a win. I'm curious to know what y'all thought about the combat and the auto battle system, and I feel like Nintendo talked a lot about that and how you can just send your Pokemon out to go do some battles for you. How did that work out?
For a second, I was confused because I was like, "There's an auto battle system." But yeah, that stuff was cool. I'll let Reb talk about that first, actually.
Yeah, I liked it fine. I think it needs a little bit more polish technically. It's kind of in the bucket of like weird technical problems where like if you got like too far away, it didn't always like fully work out. Like I'd send out a Pokemon and it like wouldn't always like target onto something to battle. It would just sort of like flop around or whatever. But when it worked, it was good. It actually, I found it really useful. The story I told earlier is that I went through a very challenging like first section, and then I had a period of like 3 or 4 big like story moments where I just steamrolled everything, and everything, all the trainers were easy, all the wild Pokemon were easy, and I actually found the auto battling to be enjoyable during that period of time, because you the other purpose to battling wild Pokemon, aside from just like catching them and collecting them, is you get materials that you can use to make TMs with. And so by like going into auto battle mode, you just kind of like send your Pokemon out, and then you just like slowly, you get a little bit of experience from it, whatever, but you also get like all these materials. And so being able to just sort of run through these otherwise very easy areas and not have to engage with 20 Pokemon I needed to build this TM that I wanted, and just like auto send out a Pokemon, let it run around, do my work for me, and then run away. Like that was really nice. And it felt when it was technically working, it felt like a really nice and smooth way to move through an area that might otherwise be a little less interesting to me. So I was really glad that was there.
Yeah, and it felt for me like a fun workaround for the fact that like Pokemon can be a bit slow when you do get into an encounter, and it's like, all right, exclamation point, all right, camera transition, all right, like battle start. Yeah, I do double hit, and it's like, cool, boom, it hit, boom, it hit. You hit 2 times. Super effective. I'm like, oh, do I really have to go through all this every single time? That's one of my other things. Is like, I wish I want Pokemon to add like a quick battle mode for people who know what the moves do.
Maybe.
Yeah, like just give me a fast forward. If I can go 3 times this fast, that'd be great.
So
like
I guess I should check the options. In other Pokemon games, there's usually an option in the menu to at least turn off animations.
The animations. Yeah, I've not checked in this game.
I mean, I know that makes it move some. I will say part of the reason why battling is so damn slow is because the game lags. It takes like, I think Casey over at IGN timed it. She was doing guides for us, and she said it takes like it can take up to 20 seconds just to switch out a Pokemon because of the lag.
No.
Wow.
Oh, that makes
on the worst end. I mean, I've had it, go faster.
That's unacceptable.
But it is very long.
Oh my god, that just makes my ass clench, because that is just one of my biggest pet peeves in RPGs, especially turn-based RPGs, because it's you want the grinding should be fun, but it's not if you have to if you can knit in between battles and shit. I don't know. It's just not. It's
funny because I'm looking at the options, because usually I do turn off the battle animation. I don't see that in the options, which worries me a little bit in this Pokemon game. But it's not even that I don't even want to see animations, because I want the best of both worlds. Where I do see the animations, they're just fast forwarded real quick.
Yeah.
Because I think there is some like cool visual stuff that goes on during them. But yeah,
Torch song.
Oh my god, I fucking love Torch Song. But yeah, like I think the auto battling, everything just Reb just said, and yeah. Like I like the idea of there's a quick way for me to get the materials, which is a really great. I assume this is a new addition. The fact that Pokemon drop materials and then you're crafting TMs.
Yeah, it's new. It's new. They've sort of been experimenting since we moved away from entering a patch of tall grass and having just random encounters with things you can't see. Like between Let's Go, Sword and Shield, Arceus, and now this, they've been experimenting with like, how do we let people do things in bulk? So in Arceus, that was like catching Pokemon in bulk. It was sneaking around and just throwing Pokeballs at things and like hoping it worked. In Let's Go, it was catching in bulk also, because you were like doing just this thing. You weren't actually battling wild Pokemon. So they're doing all these little experiments. In this one, it's battling wild Pokemon in bulk, like without actually having to engage with them. So that it's a little bit reminiscent of collecting materials, I think, in Arceus, but it's not quite the same.
Gotcha. But I do like that system. Like I think it's fun, the idea of getting to craft TMs and then doing that based off of the fact that like, all right, you beat I don't know, a Weedle, so you get a Weedle horn or whatever, like the different Pokemon drops, right? Like I like that system. And then also I forget where I was going. There was like another thing I wanted to shout out in regards to there's no like, when you make eye contact with a random trainer and they're like, cool, let's battle now, right? There's no forced battles. If you see a trainer out in the wild, you have to talk to them to battle them. And I like that as well. I like that
too, yeah.
I think it adds to the openness, right? You can you don't have too much friction trying to go where you want, but then also they have the incentive of in the different areas, you'll see a guy that's next to the Pokemon Center, and like he if you talk to him, he's like, hey, if you beat 6 trainers in this area, you'll get a special prize. And so they do give you the incentive to want to battle these trainers as well, alongside like wanting to get the XP anyway, because if you're under leveled, the game's just not gonna be fun. But yeah, I really like that shift. And also, you asked how's combat in general. I am impressed by the fact that I struggled quite a bit in this game at times, right? Like not throughout the whole thing, but this game I think is a harder Pokemon game, like a slightly harder Pokemon game, in a way that I like.
It can be.
Yeah, it can be. Like, especially if you're me and you're like, I was very much like all ships ahead. I am barreling through this game. Like, let me get through the story. I think because I was doing like a lot of mainlining for sure. Like I felt that friction, but I feel like even in other Pokemon games when I'm mainlining, I am like, oh man, these gym leaders ain't shit. Like I'm knocking these guys down. Whereas here I'm like, there are quite a few gym leaders where I'm like, ooh, I am on my 3rd try and I am still struggling with this guy. Let me figure out what I'm doing wrong here.
I love that because I feel like, just like you said, in other games you have your one main and he's way OP as shit, but he can mow over any gym leader that you've ever experienced. But from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you really maybe need a balanced party and you need to be properly leveled or you're not going to be able to get through it. And that's something I've wanted for a long time.
By the time I finish this game, my main Pokemon, I want to say, is level like 72, which is way higher than they would get in any of the other games for me when I'm mainlining. Like usually I barrel out at like I think the high 50s, the low 60s.
Yeah. Mine are quite a bit lower than that actually, which made the parts at the end very interesting.
You and your dang
They're like late 60s. Yeah. Well, I will say actually about the ending, I think this is the end game. I'm not going to spoil it for people, but it goes hard.
Yes, 100%.
And it's kind of nuts how they like wrap up these stories and these 3 like separate stories and do like a big grand finale. I was not expecting it, and it's really cool and probably one of the better endings in a Pokemon game.
So would you say those 3 different progression, the Path of Legends, Victory Road, and Operation Starfall, whatever, do you think those are a positive addition to the Pokemon franchise?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I thought
100%.
when they pitched this, I was very cynical because what I was hearing described was exactly what Pokemon games had always been, which is 8 gyms, an evil team that you have to defeat. Ooh, we already have that. And then like some vague like legendary Pokemon plot. Like we literally we have that at home. Like that was nothing. But I think what this allowed them to do is it allowed them to sort of beef up those other 2 plots, like the evil team and the pseudo legendary thing. It allowed them to give them sort of some space. They got characters. This is actually a pretty big cast for a Pokemon game. Like there are a lot more characters that actually get a little bit of time to shine here and there.
It is a really good cast too.
It is. Like I really love all the characters. They're all interesting and sweet. I mean, it's still a kids game, so it's a little fluffy at times, but so it's pretty good. And it gave a lot more characters a little more time and space to shine and allow themselves to be beloved. And yeah, I think it was overall a net positive. Long term, if they did this again, and I hope they do, I would love to see a little more like so with 8 gyms and then there's 5 steps on Starfall Street and there's 5 steps on Path of the Titans or whatever it is. So those 2 inevitably felt a little more truncated just as a result. I mean, if they were going to beef anything up, I think beef those 2 up even more if you really want to go crazy. But the plot, it was good. Like it was a really good addition, and it allowed me to feel like I wasn't just sort of getting bored. Like, oh, I gotta go do another gym. Now I gotta go do another gym. Now I gotta go do another gym. Like I felt like I was. They all felt like nicely spaced out on the map in a way too, where if you're just sort of wandering and going where the wind takes you, you'll kind of inevitably end up doing a little bit of everything on the way.
Yeah, like the golden. I feel like the game doesn't have an explicit golden path of do these things in this exact order, but there's like almost like a suggested path, a little bit of, all right, do this area, and then maybe do this area, and then maybe do this area. And like those clumps of areas kind of encompass all 3 of those quest lines in a way where you're making like equal progression through each of them. And I think it was mapped out in a really good way. And I think like just the writing in this game is steps above. Like Reb said, it's still a kid's game. It is still Pokemon. So like don't expect, I don't know. I was gonna say don't expect Elden Ring. It's not Nier Automata. It's not freaking like Horizon Zero Dawn. Like it is kiddie. But that said, there are twists in this game that had me like, whoa, I actually did not expect that. Yay. Right? And like there are moments where I'm laughing. And this game is like, I think at times it is like self-aware in terms of like what it's doing and how they're portraying these characters. And then they flip that on its head in ways where I'm like, damn, like y'all actually are doing the dang thing here, like with the writing. And so yeah, like I really enjoyed actually the story in this game, especially the end game.
Oh my god, it's nuts. I can't wait until more people are talking about it. It's so weird.
You know, I gotta say, like, hearing you two talk about it, like the performance issues, I think I anticipated. I think a lot of people anticipated that as well. I don't think we anticipated it being as bad as it currently is, but you know, It's fine. But everything else you have talked about, the writing, the difficulty, the open world, all of that has got me more excited, I think, than I was before talking to you two. So I think that is a win. And I guess we're running out of time. So to hear your final thoughts on this, I feel like every Pokemon game, we always say the same thing. It's a step forward. And the next game will be, and I hate saying this, but we're going to say it anyway, the Breath of the Wild of Pokemon. You know, we're all kind of anticipating that beautiful, executed, open world game. So what do you think the future of the franchise looks like after playing Scarlet and Violet?
I hope it looks like this. I think this would be their Breath of the Wild moment if it performed better. Like, again, design-wise. Like, okay, the Breath of the Wild moment thing is such an interesting conversation, and I think about it a lot, because I think a lot of people looked at Breath of the Wild and knew they wanted to have that for their games, but they took exactly the wrong lesson from it. And the wrong lesson was big grassy field, and open world. Like that was, and piano music. Like that was kind of the lesson that they took. And I've seen, like, I think Arceus had this problem. Like Arceus looked at that and tried to sort of copy these trappings, but didn't quite understand what applying the lessons of Breath of the Wild meant to their specific genre. But then I look at a game like Elden Ring, and I think Elden Ring looked at Breath of the Wild and thought, okay, yes, we want that, but we want it in a very FromSoft way. And then they did it, and it nailed it. And I think design-wise, the Scarlet and Violet people have figured it out. Like, they found it. They figured out what Breath of the Wild moment means for Pokemon. Like, how do we take this thing that used to be a very, like, top-down, 2D, strict, linear, turn-based monster collecting game and turn it into this kind of like modern open world thing that still delivers on the fantasy we all have in our heads, right? Of being this child out on an adventure and seeing these like strange creatures and befriending them and going out on an adventure of our own and owning that. Like that's the fantasy we all want in our heads. So how do you translate that and how do you put that in a game? They figured it out. Like they've got it. This is the thing. You did it. Please do something about your technology. Like, I am begging you, because we cannot move forward from this. There is no forward. You cannot do the same thing again. You cannot do better than this if you do not figure out this technology. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's like stop using a proprietary engine and get an Unreal or something. I don't know if it's like hire some different people. I don't know if it's we need a new Switch. I do not have the technical answers for this, but this is like whoever works behind the scenes there, Nintendo, Pokemon, they got to have a conversation about this. I'm sure they have to be talking about this. They can't not know. Game developers know something needs to happen because this is like the biggest franchise in the world and you've done it. You have like struck gold for the millionth time and you have figured out what your future is. You can iterate on this a million different ways. You can make like incredible versions of this over and over and I will eat them up. I will give you all my money. It has to work. Please fix it. Okay, there's my impassioned plea.
Oh, I could cry.
Yeah, I can't say any better. Like, I pretty much, I agree 1000% with what everything Rebekah just said. Right? Like, I think this is the future of Pokemon. I think they absolutely nailed it. I think the one of the big lessons from Breath of the Wild is the idea of, hey, like make this an adventure, right? Like let people carve their own path or chart their own path. Like move through this world in the way that they want to, right? Let people create their own journey through this world. And this game legitimately lets you do that, right? Like I think being able to do everything in your own order and like giving you the freedom to go, all right, this gym leader is a little bit stronger, like this area is a little bit stronger. Screw it, like let me try it out, right? And like giving you the facilities to be able to do that and be able to do it and have fun and like grind to do all that stuff, right? In this open-ended Pokemon game, I think it works so well. All the decisions, gameplay-wise, design-wise, I think works so well. Again, the writing, like whoever led this writing team this time around, or what, like whoever they hired, or like whatever's going on over there, I think they finally get it in terms of what Pokemon can be and should be in a story, right? Like, yeah, keep it kiddie. Keep the tone. I think there's something fun and there's something whimsical and Nintendo and like very Pokemon about like the tone they're hitting with this story in a way that's like, yeah, like this game's never gonna be nominated for best narrative. It doesn't need to be. Like have fun with it. Give me characters that I connect to. Give me moments toward the end that like make me tear up and make me go, why am I tearing up right now? It's a kid's game, right? Like give me those moments and yeah, like carry that forward. I think they absolutely nailed that stuff. And yeah, like I think I want Pokemon to continue with this path, like make more of these types of Pokemon games. But yeah, figure your shit out in terms of tech. Like this game feels like it's developed for a future Switch and they just put it out for this one for whatever reason, right? Like again, like the scope is there, the scale is there, like the vision is there. When you're walking to a town and it feels like a town, and you see the buildings, it's like, okay, that's the gym because it looks like that. Let me just walk. Like it looks, like stylistically, the direction is so good, right? And you can feel it. Like you can feel how good this open world is. It just needs to go all the way, right, and actually get there technically. And like maybe that is the next Switch. Maybe that's the Switch 2 or whatever. Maybe that is them like using this as their first step to figure out how to make a game of this scope. And maybe the next one is them being like, cool, now let's polish. Now let's like hone this in. I don't know what it is. I just hope they get there.
Whew. Wow. I mean, amen. Like that, this has been an incredible conversation. This is everything I'd hoped and dreamed of. Just hearing you two go back and forth and talking about it. It's why I'm so happy you two took the time today to join me on What's Good Games, because I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to experience it myself. I needed to hear you two go back and forth. So thank you, Rebekah. Thank you, Blessing, so much for joining me this week. And I would just love to have you guys promote what you got going on. Again, like let us know where you're at. So Rebekah, we'll start with you. You're at IGN, obviously, but you have anything else you want people to check out?
Yeah, well, you can find me on Twitter for hopefully as long as it lasts, at Duck Valentine. I'm at IGN.com. You can read my work at IGN.com/person/Duck Valentine. I have a review in progress if you want to read like more detailed thoughts on this up at IGN.com right now that you can read. I will have a fully scored final review with lots more details about every little thing that you could ever want to know going up sometime early next week, probably like a Tuesday or Wednesday kind of thing. And there'll be a video to go with that. So you can keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. And you, Blessing?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Blessing Jr. I'm on YouTube. Well, I'm at Kind of Funny, right? YouTube.com. So it's Kind of Funny Games. If you want to check shows out there, of course, I'm on Kind of Funny Games Daily, which is our daily video game news show. And I'm also on PS I Love You XOXO, which is our PlayStation podcast. And I believe I won't talk about what our future plans are for Pokemon coverage, but stay tuned to YouTube.com. So it's Kind of Funny Games. Today we're talking about Pokemon and many more games like Somerville, Sonic, God of War, Ragnarok, and more.
And more. And I will have all of those links for you in the show notes. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of What's Good Games. Thank you, Rebekah. Thank you, Blessing, for joining us. And joining me, I guess, specifically this week. Andrea and I will be back next week with special guest Lucy for a Lucy James, for a God of War Ragnarok spoiler cast.
That's
I know.
So fun.
I need to finish the game.
That'll be sick.
I'm close. I'm like 30 hours in. Boy. Yeah, thanks again, everyone. And we will see you next week.